everyone, and welcome to the Sabi Sands. It's great to be back after 2.5 weeks of leave. And for those of you who have yet to meet me, my name is Scott, and I'm teamed up with Jean-Andre on camera. And we've got some great news. We've got a new addition to the team, and his name is Tebs. He's another cameraman. He's also sitting on the back with Jean-Andre, getting some pointers as to what exactly he's going to be doing in the coming weeks and months. It's always great to have somebody new on board, and not only good to meet Tebs, but so good to be back to bond with all the other crew that have been here over the last few weeks. It seems like a short amount of time, but 2 weeks is actually quite long for us, and it feels like we've been away for an eternity. And we've been filled in around the campfire last night about a lot of the ongoings with not only the animals but also the people and what's been happening behind the scenes here. And it sounds like it's been an interesting couple of weeks, and it's certainly wonderful to be back here. It's remarkably cold this morning. I can't believe I'm wearing a jersey. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that would happen this deep into the summer. And it's about 16 degrees Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm certainly enjoying this surprisingly crisp weather, because yesterday when we arrived it was incredibly hot and humid. Now, James is planning on doing a bushwalk this morning. I know there's been a few little tech issues with the backpack, which helps transmit the signal to you guys, but hopefully they'll be up and running shortly and you'll get to spend some time on foot with him. Jamie's got the morning off, and our plan in the vehicle is to kind of work the western corridor of Djuma in the hope that there may be some sign of two leopards that were seen mating yesterday, Karuna and Tingana. And this is Karuna's kind of core territory, the female, so she could well come back into this area. So that's what we're hoping for. But the great thing about being back after a few weeks away is anything we see along the way is going to get me excited, and it's just going to be great to see how the waterholes are looking. I've already been told they're all very dry. I took a short drive yesterday afternoon with Nikki and saw that the Djuma waterhole was probably, I don't know if it's possible for it to be drier than it was before, but it is bone dry, as are the other waterholes. Quite lucky at this time of the year in that because it is very dry, even though there's a lot of green vegetation around, it's not nearly as thick as it would normally be, so that makes our lives a little bit easier when it comes to spotting animals off in the bush. But I'm sure it won't be too long until we find something interesting. And good morning, Georgianne, John, Debs, and Linda. Thank you very much for your kind welcome backs. And I'm looking forward to spending some more time with all of you on safari. I didn't watch one of the safaris while I was away, so I've been missing it greatly. Although we did watch a few of those 2 one-hour live TV broadcasts that we did just before we went on leave, and nice to look through those 2 drives. We got really lucky, especially on that second morning with Peter on shadow with that impala that was literally still kicking that she had caught. And for those of you who do watch the show very often, you'll understand that that's not something we see very often. It's an absolutely beautiful morning. There's a few clouds out to the west. Sadly, we're facing east now, so Jean-Andre won't be able to show those to you, but as the morning progresses, we will show the clouds forming out to the west, but I don't think they look like they're going to cause any trouble for us. But at this time of the year, the weather patterns can change quite drastically, and before we know it, we could have a big electrical thunderstorm coming through. and it was wonderful to see some highlights of Jean-Dre and James doing some kind of a rain dance last night. So those of you who weren't on the Sunset Safari yesterday, you would have sadly missed out, but maybe you would have caught the highlights of that little performance. There's quite a few fresh buffalo tracks crossing the road here. When I say fresh, possibly from early last night, and they're heading in the same direction we're heading in, so that's some good prospects. It's quite a windy morning, so a lot of the animals may be a little bit nervous in this weather. Well, we found our first animal. It's not big, but it's an awesome little animal that you may have seen a lot of while I was away, but they've only really started emerging just before I went on leave. And this is called the millipede. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out quickly, because it's hard for you to understand how big it is, unless of course you know how big a buffalo track is. That's a buffalo track just in front of it. So, as you can see, it's quite large. With my little hands, if I extend my thumb and my pinky, it's about 6 inches. So this one's probably about 5 inches long. Hundreds of little legs waving along as it moves forward. I'm not going to disturb this one, but if I was to disturb it, what it would do, it would curl up into a little ball. Not a ball, actually a circle. And thankfully these millipedes actually don't have too many predators. It's mainly scorpions that can feed on them, as well as a nocturnal animal called the civets. Other animals in this area don't have the ability to process the quite toxic stomach juices or body fluids of this little millipede, which apparently contains traces of cyanide, so highly toxic for most animals, but scorpions and civets, which is almost like an African raccoon, you could say, will feed on them. Good. Well, if you are joining for the first time, it's important to know that it's not only the big things we're interested out here on safari, it's all the critters. Well, I just need to make sure that I know where it is so I don't run over it. That would be an unpleasant way to return to the bush. Bye-bye. And I'm told there are quite a few creepy crawlies moving about at this time of the year, or since I've been gone. There have been a lot of scorpions seen in and around the camp, and I'm looking forward to finding and showing you some more scorpions. As well as snakes, of course. Snakes are, oh, here we go. Well, here are the buffalo. I'm just going to think about where to go exactly, although this looks like a decent spot to start with. Jean-Dre's found a nice little gap there. Look at all of them. And this is just a tiny portion of this herd, as far as I'm aware. There's a big bull. Good morning, mister. Now, as he looks at us, you'll see how he's got a large crown of horn at the center of his head. A female would lack that bony center of the horns, and she'd often actually have a middle parting of hair. How was your night? Were there any lion chasing you guys around? Lion will very often follow large herds of buffalo because they know there are lots of young calves as well as possibly weakening older members within the herds that make for good hunting opportunities. For now, though, they don't seem too concerned about anything and are probably enjoying basking in this morning sunshine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and reposition a little bit and just drive forward, because it does look like the herd stretches quite far up to our right-hand side here. And it'll be nice to try and give you an idea of how many are actually here. I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess at this stage, because there's many different herds that move through this area. And they also move very large distances. They aren't territorial, and they'll go wherever the grass is greenest. I'm going to avoid this little portion of the herd here, even though they are in the clearing, because there's some even closer up just ahead. Look at those awesome clouds. Wonderful. I've just got some unfortunate news, and that is that the backpack for the bushwalk doesn't seem to be working too well. So they've given up on that, and James is going back to jump into one of the other vehicles. But everything happens for a reason, and maybe that's a blessing in disguise. Maybe he'll be able to find you something interesting. Well, I've got no doubt that he actually will be able to find you something interesting in the vehicle. Interesting, look at this youngster's horns. Not sure what would have caused this kind of deformity, especially considering he is looking, well, he is quite young. But it's not uncommon to see one or two individuals with slightly deformed horns that will have no major impact in his life. All different shapes and sizes. It's remarkable to see how their horns alter in shape as they grow. And all of them seem to be doing the same thing, and that is chewing the cud. As they are ruminants, and they've got a highly effective digestive system where they'll regurgitate food that they've already chewed on to make sure that they really break it down to fine material that makes it easier for their stomachs to absorb all the nutrients. Well, good morning to Donna, who sent through her question to us on Twitter. And good to have you on board, Donna. Interested to know what got you to think about your question. And Donna's interested to know, have animals ever been run over by vehicles in the Sabi Sands? And it happens very infrequently. But I do know one horror story from many years back when a colleague was driving along one of the main roads to leave the park, and an impala crossed the road in front of him at extremely high speeds. And before he had time to slow down, a cheetah, which was chasing that impala, ended up underneath his wheels. And I don't think he's to blame. I know the guy very well. He's not a reckless driver, but his timing was just extremely unfortunate. So, I mean, these kind of accidents do happen, but that's the only one that I know of within the Sabi Sands. in parks like the Kruger National Park, where a lot of the roads are tarmac, that can lead to more likely accidents because people are more inclined to travel quickly on the smooth roads. But more importantly, the hooved animals skate like they're on ice if they try and accelerate on the tarmac and end up not moving forward or backwards and just slipping on the ground. So in those areas it does happen from time to time, but I guess it's one of those not unavoidable but hard to avoid scenarios. You'll be interested to know that there's actually traffic cops within the Kruger National Park with speed guns trapping, making sure people don't speed, or at least trying to deter them. So yes, Don, it does happen very infrequently. It's the smaller, slower moving animals that I guess you may not even realize you've injured that probably bear the brunt of the vehicles. Tortoises and chameleons, animals that are not easy to spot that cross the road, and I guess even though they're small, it's still an animal's life that may be ended due to us driving around. And let's hope that doesn't happen today, Donna. We've just got a great report through from Chris Rogue, and thanks for sending this through. And that is that the Birmingham Male Coalition of Lions moved straight through the centre of Djuma last night. Now, I've yet to see one of their footprints. I think they were on Arethusa last night, so they've headed quite far north and east and crossed over our Djuma Dam wall. So thanks very much for that update, and I think we'll possibly head across there to follow up on the tracks, or maybe we'll leave James to do that. He's going to be closer to that area to respond to those tracks, and I think I may continue in this western corridor, possibly head across to Arethusa for any sign of leopard. But great update, thank you very much. Wonderful. You may have actually heard these oxpeckers before you saw them land, and they've come to get their breakfast. Oh, there we go. Good start to the morning. You can actually see it picking off the ticks. Watch closely. I think there's one more there. Oh no, he left that one underneath the ear. And just to keep you updated on James' movements, I'm told he is in the other vehicle, about to head out, and he is going to follow up on those lion tracks. So, good prospects. Apparently they haven't been seen once on Djuma, I don't think, in the 2 weeks that I've been gone. So I'm sure a lot of you would love to see them again. And James has just got mobile, so I'm going to quickly update some of where I've checked quickly on the Game Drive radio. Morning, James. I did Vuyatela access onto Impala Plains, and I'm now with a large herd of buffalo on Zoe's just south of the old hyena den site. Well, as you can see, this buffalo is looking exceptionally relaxed. And earlier on I mentioned that their horns take on many different shapes during the initial years of the buffalo's life, and Shannon's just pointed out that this individual's horns point directly upwards, and that's not uncommon. I'm just going to ask Jean-Ray to even zoom out a little bit and show the buffalo directly behind him. The one higher up, sorry, Jean-Ray, the one with the funny horns, sorry. And you can see that one, even though it's got one deformed horn, its other horn looks exactly the same. It goes straight up. So all of the young buffalo will take on this appearance for a year or so of their life before they somehow bend out and shape into a regular buffalo horn. And it's not only the buffalo who go through this, but wildebeest who've got a very similar horn structure will go through that same process where young wildebeest's horns will poke straight up out the side of their heads. So well done, Shannon. I'm glad you pointed that out, but if we spend a little bit more time with this herd, we'll show you lots more members of the same age that have got exactly the same horn structure. There's quite a cute little scene here. The two oxpeckers that came down and landed a bit earlier have foregone the breakfast opportunity and are taking this time to warm up, lying on the buffalo like it's a big solar panel. Cute. And that gives you an idea that it is quite crisp and cold this morning, even though it is sunny. Oh, look at that. That one buffalo wasn't too sure what that oxpecker was doing then, gave it a beady eyeball. One thing that I don't think I have mentioned, I'm getting a bit rusty after my time off, is that these are the red-billed oxpeckers. And thanks to Lynn for the updates, saying that there have actually been a few sightings of yellow-billed oxpeckers on the herds of buffalo. Now, we don't see nearly as many yellow-billed oxpeckers as we do red-billed. I think I've only managed to show them to you once or twice over the year that it's almost been that I've been here. I arrived on the 20th of November last year, so almost a year here at Djuma on Safari Live, and what a great year it's been, and hopefully there'll be many more years with all of you guys on Safari. What I've done is I've got my book out just to be able to show you the yellow-billed oxpecker and what to look for, because maybe you'll be able to spot one before we do. So the red-billed oxpecker is here at the bottom of the page. Clearly it has a red bill and quite a big yellow ring around its eye. Now, what can be misleading is that the yellow-billed oxpecker also has a tiny bit of red on the end of its beak, but it lacks that yellow ring around its eye, and it's a little bit larger, ever so slightly, than the red-billed. So it'll be great if we can see some of those for you. I wonder if these have returned back into the area, the violet-backed starling. They are incredibly beautiful. Well, at least the males are. The females didn't get so lucky, but the males are incredibly pretty. Well, good stuff. And we've just got another wonderful update. Thank you so much to all of you sending through the updates and questions, and this one's from Ellen Fowler. Hello, Ellen. And she's mentioned that it's actually the 1-year anniversary of live drives at Djuma today. So I arrived a little bit after the show got started last year. There's another oxpecker genre. It just looks like it's giving the buffalo a little bit of a hard time, so this could be good. Pecking around its eyes and ears. Now, even though the oxpeckers are doing the buffalo a huge favor by removing these parasites from them, when they start its talons was latched onto the buffalo's eyelid there. Now it's digging into its ear, which understandably is a little bit intrusive. And just like woodpeckers, oxpeckers have got what is called a zygodactyl foot structure. It means 2 toes face forward and 2 toes face backwards. Perfectly suited to their lifestyle, clambering around these animals, as it suits the woodpecker's lifestyle of clambering up tree trunks. Whereas most birds will have 3 toes forward and 1 toe backward. What a stunning morning here, all the clouds out to the western horizon. Hello to B. Wilson, and B. Wilson's pointed out that we don't often see large herds of buffalo. That's true, and in the sightings that B. Wilson has had of these large herds of buffalo, they haven't really noticed them lying together so tightly like this, or actually sleeping much at all. But they do need to sleep, and interestingly enough, it's not uncommon for them to be in tight bunches like this. Even in hot weather, they typically lie very close to one another. So it's not abnormal behavior for them. And I guess it's possibly simply the fact that we don't get to see them that often, that this is one side of the buffalo's life that you have yet to see or understand. But it's not abnormal behavior to see them lying like this. You get a good idea of how windy it is. All the trees dancing in the wind. Now I'm guessing this herd will probably lie down for probably an hour or so before moving again. And I would be highly surprised if we find them here this afternoon. They're not going to spend the whole day here. And I don't think we are either, so I'm thinking of probably heading off a little bit later. Now, we just got a question through from Kachino John, wanting to know who the grand bubba is of this herd, and I'm guessing that's the big male of the herd. And interestingly, John, there won't be one male who is king of the herd, although I must say that there is probably one who is the biggest and most dominant, but there'll be many big bulls within this herd that will compete for mating rights. But there won't be one that gets to do all the mating. And in terms of who's in charge of the herd, it's actually the females. Some of the older females that make the decisions as to where the herd will go next, and the males simply follow suit. I'm not sure exactly which females those will be, and it's very hard to tell. I'm not actually sure how the researchers worked out that the females were or are in charge, but that is what the researchers believe. Now, I've just realized, just looking behind us, that it appears that a portion of the herd has started moving again. So it looks like, well, I'm guessing they're all going to start moving. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reposition quickly and try and get ahead of the members that are already moving. They're moving off to our left, and try and get in front of them so we can see what they get up to. Well, I'm just going to wait though, because there's a very old, frail female crossing in front of us. I don't want to rush her. She actually doesn't look in such bad condition, but she does look a little bit old. And it's time to get more grass. I've got some good news. James is onto those lion tracks. They're heading straight north up a road called Gowrie Cut Line. There's bad signal there, so sadly you're not going to jump onto his vehicle just yet, but hopefully it won't be long before you do get an update. I'm guessing though that these lion may have already crossed over our northern boundary, but anything can happen out here, so cross fingers and maybe he'll find them before they have crossed. And for those of you who are new to the safari live experience, there are boundaries that prohibit us from moving into certain areas, but thankfully the animals have got free rein to go wherever they like. Okay, I'm just going to reposition now quickly. Other questions just come through, and this one's from Rosanna in New Zealand. Hello, and thanks for sending your question through. Rosanna's interested to know what is the average lifespan of a Cape buffalo, and anywhere around 20 years would be kind of usual lifespan, possibly some a little bit older than that, others a little bit younger. Obviously, some will get caught when they're young calves by lion, easy meals. But a general rule with animals to use when trying to understand longevity and lifespan is that the bigger the animal, typically the longer it lives for. And that's applicable almost throughout all the animals. The African elephant can live for up to 60 years, and that's the biggest mammal we get here, and it has the longest lifespan. And the smaller antelope or mammals like duiker and steenbok will live for shorter periods of time compared to that of their older cousins like kudu and impala. So obviously some of these females who run the show here within this herd have decided that it's time to go and get some more food. Just like we were chatting about a bit earlier, it's the females who are referred to as pathfinders that collectively discuss and decide where to go next. This is a female in front of us right there. Well, there's all different shapes and sizes here, and keep a lookout for the smaller buffalo with those horns probing straight up from the side of their heads. There's one there, just popping into frame. What I'm going to try and do is show you all different sized ones or aged ones so that you get an idea of the progression of growth. And I've just spotted one now, just a little bit off to our left, Jandra, at about 9 o'clock. The smallest one we've seen this morning, there it is. And there we go. There you get an idea of what it looks like when they're a bit younger. And there's even one behind it. Perfect. So here you're getting a great idea of how exactly the horns will alter over the years. It'll probably take about 5 or 6 years before the horn starts resembling a regular buffalo rack, you could say. And this is awesome. We've got this whole herd, I'm guessing a couple of hundred, maybe more, and they're literally streaming past us now, both sides of the vehicle. Now, I mentioned earlier how the females will lack the big bony center to their horns, and there's quite a large female, oh, there's quite a few of them actually, but keep an eye out. There's one kind of on the top right of the screen there, Jeandre, and she's a good example. You can see how at the center of her head, she's got a hairy middle parting. So you may have got a glimpse of that. Oh, there we go. Well, I'm wondering where they're heading towards. There's not much water in the direction that they're going, so I don't think they're going to be heading to Warthol, and hopefully, or possibly not on Djuma, but like I said, at this time of the year, they're going to be making the most of the fresh green shoots. So still good prospects. James is still hot on the trail of those lions, and I'm going to let him focus on trying to work out where they've gone. It's extremely difficult to track animals as well as present to you guys, so let's let him try and find the lions, or at least a better idea of where they've gone, before getting you onto his vehicle for an update. And with such a wonderful sighting of all these buffalo, there's no point in rushing you away. Keep your eyes open for the yellow-billed oxpeckers. That's a red-billed that's just landed on the back there. Now, what's interesting here is that buffaloes are grazers, which means they eat grass, but they will make exceptions to get extra minerals and nutrients, and from time to time they will feed on leaves, they'll browse on leaves, but it's mainly the grass that they're looking for. Another female, again, you see how she's got that hairy center of her head. Hello. She doesn't seem too impressed with us, not sure why. Maybe she doesn't agree with Jeandre's outfit, or mine, or Teb's, one of the three of us. Well, I just heard a question through from a name that I've yet to hear, Matowix, I think I've pronounced it correctly. Great to have you on safari with us, and you've asked a good question. I mentioned earlier that lions like to pursue these large herds of buffalo in the hope that they may be able to catch one. They are difficult prey items to take down. They're big, and once lion do manage to bring one herd member down, the herd will often rally and regroup and come in and chase the lions away. Those horns that we've been talking about can inflict a lot of damage to lion, and it's certainly not an easy prey item to bring down. And Matowix would like to know if the lions manage to catch these buffalo every day, and the lions wish that was the case, and it certainly isn't. There will be periods though where coalitions of lion or prides of lion who are very successful in hunting may get lucky, and the Birmingham Coalition of Lions, which James is busy tracking now, this time last year they caught 3 buffalo in 3 nights. So there they did catch buffalo every day, you could say, but it's not always the case. And for all the predators out here, even the raptors, the birds of prey, or the smaller mammalian predators, don't catch as many animals as everyone thinks they do, because what we don't realize is that all these animals have evolved to not be eaten. So it's actually the predators who are only successful about 20% of all attempts. And I've seen prides of lion trail herds of buffalo like this for 4 or 5 days before managing to successfully bring one buffalo down. And that's one pride of lion following one herd of buffalo, trying and trying and trying, and only after many attempts, 5 days or so, did that pride of lion manage to succeed. So it's not an easy job. And what we'll also find is that lions will often actually make up their diet with a lot of smaller animals like impala, which are easier to catch generally. So can you believe it? The buffalo are still coming. You'll possibly hear some of them bellowing out. Oh, there we go. Well, still on the topic of buffaloes and hunting, Carolyn in Chicago has asked whether older buffaloes will more typically die of old age before being caught, or will they actually be caught before that point? And most often they are, I guess you could say, put out of their misery by lions. And it's uncommon that animals will make it to old age and die a peaceful death without being killed, although it does happen from time to time. Every now and then we come across a buffalo carcass that has not actually been killed by lions, but I think that is certainly the minority of the time. This is more typical feeding behavior of the Cape buffalo. You can see it's using its tongue to swirl up as much of that green grass as it can. And isn't this audio wonderful? You're going to be getting some crazy audio from these buffalo all around us. I can see one female's calling. I'm not sure who the others are that she's talking to, but they're having some kind of a discussion. It would be wonderful to know exactly what they're saying, but I don't think anybody on the planet would be able to help you with that. Certainly not me. Let's see if we can try and show you one. Not going to be easy, but let's try and find one that seems to be getting quite vocal and get you to not only hear the audio but see it as well. I'm just trying to work out which one to our right. I think it's the one in the middle of the screen that's calling, but I can't be certain. Well, we've got a very optimistic comment through from Georgianne. And thank you for your optimism, Georgianne. Georgianne says with all these buffalo around, we'll probably find the lions before James. And let's hope that's the case. But sadly, the lion tracks are heading in the opposite direction to where we are here. But who knows, maybe another pride of lion could surprise us. And another comment through from Lucy in Indiana, and she's noticed that some of the buffalo appear more brown in color, others more black. And you spot on, Lucy, the younger calves tend to take on a lighter brown color, and as they become older, they become more black in coloration. So, good observation. I think there's an old female that's about to pop into your screen. She's right at the back of the herd. There she comes. And she was literally the last buffalo to pass us. And you can see she's looking a little bit thin. Not much hair. And I guess she would be a prime target for the lions. But thankfully for her, even though she's not in the best condition, she's got the help and support of the rest of this large herd that can be incredibly brave when herd members are taken down by a lion. I'm just going to reposition the vehicle quickly now that the whole herd has passed by, so just give me a minute or two. I mentioned a bit earlier how buffalo will occasionally vary their diets to acquire more minerals and nutrients. And Carol in Baltimore is interested to know whether buffalo and the other animals in this area will seek out salt, as a lot of the animals in America and the herbivores in America seek out salty areas or salty minerals to try and feed on. And most certainly the African animals are no different, and it can actually often be quite a popular way to lure animals onto certain areas. They'll actually put out massive slabs of salt called a salt lick, as I'm sure it's called in America as well. But it's not something that is done in the Sabi Sands by us as humans, but there will be natural salty deposits or sodic areas where animals can feed on, often soil, where they'll absorb the salts. And interestingly enough, talking about animals acquiring nutrients, I've seen leopard on a number of occasions lapping up wet, steaming buffalo dung. And that will be to acquire various minerals and nutrients, salt probably being one of them. It's a little bit thick here, but I think we should be able to wiggle our way through and get you another view of this herd. Watch your heads. Nearly there, guys. So we've got the same question through from two different people with very similar names. One is Raggedy Ann and one is Diane, and they're both interested to know, is there a certain time of year when buffaloes will calve? Is there a main calving season? And is it slight peak in the summer months, but they do give birth sporadically at any time of the year. You can see tiny babies walking around right in the middle of winter, which is not usually a good calving period for herbivores because there's not much food around then. But they, like I say, will have seasonal peaks where they do give birth. Because their gestation period's quite long, it's difficult for them to plan in advance, whereas a lot of the other smaller herbivores are really good at planning in advance, or I guess are possibly fortunate in a short gestation period of usually around 6 months, whereas buffaloes I think are around 8 or 9 months. I've forgotten the exact date, but I'm fairly certain it's an 8 or 9 month gestation. And because they don't have a set rutting period where males will compete ferociously before mating rites. It means we get babies coming through almost throughout the year, and that's why within this herd we've seen babies of all different sizes, members of all different sizes, without there being kind of set categories, which you'll often see in animals like impala. There'll be one batch all with the same size horns, but here we've noticed several different youngsters, all slightly different shaped horns or sized horns, indicating that they're all slightly different ages. Just going to creep forward a little bit more. I haven't got into the best spot here. Now this is a question that I don't think I've ever had before, and it's from Derek. Interesting one. Derek would like to know if we use scent-free soap in order to not interfere with the animal's smells and tastes. But no, we don't. I like to use coconut flavored soap, quite tropical. I'm not sure what Jandro uses, but thankfully the animals take very little concern of our smell. Well, I guess regardless of what we smell like, I guess we always smell like humans, and depending whether we are in the vehicle or on foot, they'll act a little bit differently because they can hear us and smell the vehicle probably long before they can smell us. They don't tend to worry about us too much in the vehicles. However, if we are on foot, then our sense of smell, or our scent rather, would potentially give away our position if the wind's not in our favor. But even if we didn't use soap, we would still have a very distinctive smell, which they will be aware of. And I guess the soap that we use to clean ourselves just makes that smell a little bit more bearable for the animals. But regardless of whether we use scented soap or non-scented soap, they're always going to be able to smell us, as their senses are far better than ours. Look at how windy it is. Good conditions for lions to hunt in, but at this stage it doesn't look like there's any nearby. James is still doing his best to work out where these lions have gone, and I don't think it's going to be too long before you jump onto his vehicle for an update. The tracks are kind of in the northeastern corner of Djuma. Maybe you'll get lucky and you'll find them at Buffelshoek Dam. Tracks are kind of heading in that general direction. And speaking of scent and buffaloes detecting us and acting depending on how they feel, they could act in a various amount of ways, or a number of different ways. And we've just got a question through asking if buffalo will ever charge vehicles like elephants will sometimes do, and that's from Patricia in San Diego. Very, very seldomly, Patricia. more seldom than elephants charging vehicles, most certainly, but I have heard of one or two stories of buffalo crashing into vehicles. It's more often than not the big bulls, and it's very seldom the females which will charge into vehicles. Now, it's interesting because elephants are not entirely the opposite way around. Both males and females will attack vehicles and people, but the females, who are very protective of their young calves, will often be the ones that charge into vehicles, whereas it's highly uncommon for female buffalo to do that. There's one story, a colleague of mine who worked in the southern reaches of the Sabi Sands many years ago. She was out on drive and enjoying a sighting at a herd of buffalo just like this, when one big bull came charging in, and it smashed into the left-hand side of the hood of the vehicle, between kind of the dashboard and the tracker on the tracker seats. Now you can imagine the poor tracker was feeling very vulnerable. I'm sure some of you would have seen the tracker seats on some of the other game viewers or on our other vehicle. It's basically just a randomly positioned chair on the front left corner of the hood of the vehicle, and I'm told the tracker jumped straight over the buffalo into the middle row of seats behind the driver. So thankfully he wasn't injured, but it must have been a serious display of agility to jump over that charging buffalo. Well, we've had a great sighting of this large herd of buffalo. A great way to get back into the swing of things here on safari with all you guys. So fortunate that we got lucky enough to do that. And it's been wonderful spending some quality time with them. But I think it's time to go off and see what else we can find. And we're going to send you onto James's vehicle for an update on the lion tracks. See you later.
Good morning everybody. We are hot on the trail of the Birmingham boys. Well, I wouldn't say the trail's particularly hot. I'd say it's rapidly going cold, unfortunately. A very apocalyptic wind blowing out of the east, and it's obliterating the tracks on the road. We have tracked them, and thank you to Chris Rogue for sending through the pictures. We tracked them down. They went over the dam wall. They turned down what we call the Gowrie cut line, which is basically in a south-westerly, easterly direction from the dam. Then they turned north up a road called Hyena Road, and we've come out onto the Buffelshoek cut line. And we did have tracks of two males coming onto this cut line, and they've been turning sort of on and off like that. They're also making things a bit difficult by walking on top of the tracks of the Nkuhuma Pride from yesterday, when we went east towards the Kruger and then into Buffelshoek. Anyway, we're going to carry on along here. We think the male lion tracks are still around. We want to blow behind the track. Very slow, tedious work. You're rewarded with patience sometimes. So we're going to go and check at Buffelshoek Dam now, and we'll see what's over there. The trick, of course, while driving along and to drive past something else. Liam, of course, is on camera today and also on tracking detail from the left-hand side of the vehicle. So if we see an obvious track, I'll show you, but like I say, the wind is blowing so hard that it really is kind of obliterating most of the things that we can see. Still got them there, Liam? Okay. Just in case you have wondered, in case you were worried, or in case you just stumbled across this website, you are on a live safari, of course. My name is James. Liam is on camera. You've met Scott, of course, just back from leave. Marvellous to have him back. And hashtag Safari Live if you're tweeting and wish to ask us a question, and we'd like you to ask us many questions if you don't mind. And questions at WildEarth.tv. Likewise, if you're on the email. Well, this is just marvelous, marvelous news, not in terms of the wildlife, but in terms of viewers. Sorry, I think I've seen a stick that looks like a lion. One must just check these things. Chel, you are a new viewer. It is indeed a stump. How wonderful to have you with us. Thank you very much for giving us of your time and your effort to ask us questions. Please also, next time you tweet through, tell us where you are in the world. It's always interesting. And you want to know, is it not dangerous for us to be out in an open vehicle? Chel, the short answer to that is no, it's not. If we're careful, if we read animal behavior correctly, no. There's an entire industry, I'm not sure if you're aware, built around this area where people go out in open vehicles like this one, but they're a bit bigger than this one, with 6 to 10 people on them, and they drive around and they look at elephants and lions, leopards and rhinos and buffalo and all sorts of things that you might consider dangerous, but which are not in fact dangerous at all if you know how to if you treat them with respect and you know how they behave. So Chel, as a new viewer, the most important thing for you to realize about our human place out here is that animals see us as the apex predator. They are far more afraid of us than we are of them. So it's something to bear in mind. Welcome to it. I hope you're enjoying your first morning safari, and keep talking to us. So we're going to head towards the Buffelshoek Dam now, which is a waterhole not too far from the northeastern corner. The what? Donna, we're getting a question from Donna. I'm just not sure what it is. I'm going to get it once more, then I'm going to give up. Right. Okay. Right. I've got the question now, Donna. Donna, an interesting one, and also probably valuable for Chel or Shell and any other new viewers. We sit on a piece of property that is 600 hectares or 900 hectares in extent and 600 hectares to the west of Narathusa, 1,500 hectares, which works out at about 4,000 acres. And Donna, you want to know the properties on either side of us fenced. There is a fence around the 3.5 million hectare or 8 million acres that make up the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. So that includes a piece of Zimbabwe, Mozambique and South Africa, and there is a fence around that entire area. All of the little properties that make up that area are unfenced between each other. So there are no fences between us and Buffelshoek, for example, to our north, or Cheetah Plains to our south, or Torchwood to our east, Plains to the far west of where we are. We're not too far from the western edge though, and so there is a fence on the western edge of the Sabi Sands, and that's been community lands outside of that. So no fences between where we are and anyone else within this 8 million acre piece of wilderness that we call the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. Thank you. I often think it must be very confusing people when we don't explain exactly how it fits together, and we use words like Juna and Buyatela, and it must be deeply confusing. So we're now arriving at the Buffelshoek Dam, where we're hoping there will be something in the way of lions. There's a hippopotamus. There is a hippopotamus limping out of the water, and this is the second time in a row he's done this at this time of the day. It is very bizarre. Sorry, I'm just going to try and ease into a position where we can see him. We will not follow him, and he will run away. But you can see he's come out of the water this time of the day now twice. Don't know why he's done it. He's just disappeared there behind the bushes. Very strange that he should come out of the water now. He's got a bad limp. Let's ease forward, sorry, Viam, and then you can have a look at the birds here. We can just listen to see if there are any kind of alarm calls. Now, why he's getting out of the water now, I mean, this particular day is not that surprising because it's pretty cool, it's quite cold, and so he's not necessarily going to get very burnt. There he goes. But he did it exactly the same time yesterday, and yesterday the weather was very, very hot. And then when we came back here later on in the day, he was back and he didn't move. So I don't really know why he's doing that. And while we're watching him walk through the bushes there, a little 4-year-old viewer called Melody, who was most welcome yesterday evening, I'm sure she's tucked up safe in bed now, asked Jean-Ray and I to engage in a rain dance, which was a deeply embarrassing affair for all concerned. And Nancy, you wanted to know if it worked. Nancy, it did not work. I'm not vaguely surprised it didn't work, but we hope that rain will come. There is a front blowing through, that's what this wind is, and apparently it was raining all over Cape Town yesterday and pushing up the coast, so that will hit us eventually. So those are woolly-necked storks that you're looking at now, migratory birds. They've returned, I think they're from southern Europe actually. I think that's where they come from. And they are now feeding in the last remaining water here at Buffels Hook Dam. And for our new viewers, this is the sort of last source of water on Djuma, but for one small pumped pan in front of the Djuma Dam camera. And then there are also, there's another species of stork called a saddle-billed stork, an endangered species, just at the far right-hand side that Viam is going to zoom into. It's an endangered species of stork, one male and one female. And of course, many of you viewers will come from areas where there is a lot more water than there is in a place like this. And so it's almost inconceivable to consider the number of animals that we have here in the absence of quite a lot of water for them to drink. Now, D, you want to know if this water dries up, will the animals eat mud? D, they will not eat mud unless they are in desperate need of nutrients, and some animals will do that. Some animals will certainly lick the soil in order to get some nutrients, salts, sodium, potassium, calcium, I think they also try and get, and that's called geophagia, but no, they won't do it for moisture. Remember that, first of all, very few animals out here are, there are lots of water-dependent animals, but there is also a lot of water around. So while on Djuma, our little patch of 900 hectares, there is very little water left. There is the Sand River down to the south of us, which is only about 5 to 7 kilometers down to the south. There's a big dam in Buffels Hook. In fact, there are a few dams in Buffels Hook. There are lots of individual landowners there, and each of them has a little dam. And there's a pumped pan in front of Djuma Dam. So, yeah, I think the animals will be absolutely fine. But they also are not as water dependent as we think they are. So while the impala and zebra need to drink quite often, something like a leopard, for example, actually doesn't ever need to drink, which I think is quite amazing. They get enough water from the prey that they take. Right, I don't see any lions here. We're going to head out east onto the cheetah cut line, which is our eastern boundary, and we'll go and check to see if there aren't any tracks of those lions crossing there. Ooh, let's just have a quick look at that starling there. A Burchell's starling. Some squirrels alarm calling. And then there was some tweeting just above our heads, and that was the red-billed buffalo weavers that are building a nest just to the side of us. There's a squirrel alarm calling off to the left-hand side of your picture there, down a road there. So I think let's head there quickly, and then we'll make our to the east to see if those lions have crossed. I suspect quite strongly that they have headed either north into Buffelshoek or east into Torchwood. That was their general direction. But Mvula, the marvelous male leopard, was seen around here 2 days ago. Maybe he's still around. We haven't seen his tracks leaving the area. But again, like I say, with all this wind and a bit of hardness on the ground, it's not surprising that we haven't seen tracks. Howling force 10 gale. Excellent for sailing, not so good for game viewing. There's a squirrel alarm calling in one of the trees here. You can hear him there. Now, if you are a new viewer, again, a squirrel, well, you know what a squirrel is, obviously, but a squirrel will alarm or make that noise. Look at him up there. You got him? Yeah? Just on top of this dead tree here. There he sits. And he's shouting because he's seen something that's made him deeply afraid. It could be a snake. It's unlikely to be a bird of prey because I don't think it'd be perched up there if it was a bird of prey. It could also be a leopard. Or indeed a lion. But I find these squirrels tend to be rather unspecific, and I think they lie quite a lot. So he's looking straight back here. Let's just reverse back a bit. Don't lie to me, rodent. You'll be in trouble. A squirrel is a rodent, by the way, in case you were wondering which part of the mammal class he belonged to. He belongs to the much maligned class of glorified rat.
And hello everyone, and sadly James is in a bad signal area, and I hope that little squirrel provides him with some joy, and it is shouting at something interesting, not just him, which is a possibility. Sometimes animals will alarm call at us, but more often it will be for a predator that is more likely to attack them. At this time of the year, though, an animal like a squirrel will have many predators: birds of prey, snakes, mongooses, and even larger predators like lion or leopard. So let's give James a bit of time to snoop around there, see what he can find. We've come across onto Arathusa and are making our way in towards an area called Red Dam, and there were some reports of the Salala Pride. 6 lions who were lurking around a dead buffalo there. I don't know the finer details, but we're only a few minutes away, so you came back at a good time. And hopefully it won't take long for us to find out exactly what's going on there. Get on the radio quickly, because I've just heard somebody has got into that area and relocated the line. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that he knows I'm coming, so that we don't have too many vehicles arriving at the same time. We limit the sightings to 3 vehicles, and thereafter you can take a standby to join the sighting, but it sounds like we should be able to go straight in there. Copy that, thanks very much. Would you mind if I joined you there with the Salalas? So not far at all to go before we get there, maybe just a minute or two. I can see some hyena tracks heading down this road. Possibly they caught wind of the dead buffalo that is in that area. Angie was interested to know what was going on with these line a little bit earlier. So Angie, you'll be glad to know that you'll be able to see exactly what they're up to just in a moment or two. And interestingly enough, I don't think I've actually seen this portion of the Salala Pride. They've split up into a few different portions, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on. The last time I saw a portion of the Salala Pride, there was 12 or 13 of them, and I'm told that this portion has got 6 members, 3 young males and 3 females. So I look forward to spending some time with them and getting to know who they are. And another question's just come through from one of our new viewers, Matsowix, and obviously trying to understand exactly what goes on safari. And I've asked a good question, and that is, if we are lucky enough to be in a position to see lions hunting or any predators hunting and taking down their prey, will we continue to show it, or will we censor it in any way? And Matsowix, no. There is nothing censored, and like you say, it is all natural, so important for us to show what does actually go on out here. But we don't very often get to see kills, I'll warn you in advance. Maybe over the year that we've been here, we've seen probably a kill every 2 months it averages out to. I mean, obviously it could go through a period where we could get 3 kills in 1 week, but we don't often get to see the predators taking down their prey. Well, who knows, maybe we'll get lucky this morning. I think our timing is just slightly off, but I'm going to get into position quickly and allow Tebbs, who's having his first spin on the camera, try and show you what's going on. You can see the lion are slowly making their way away from this little water hole, but at least they're on the move. Look at their full bellies. You can see 2 young males and a lioness there. Another vehicle is also in the sighting with us, but if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have known to get here. And I've just spotted another lion up to our left, which is going to be a beautiful spot to view it from. We've got a nice low angle, another one of the young males. Look at this. Wonderful stuff. And what I'm actually going to do is reposition the vehicle quickly and try and get another angle on that same male that we've just been viewing. It's a good opportunity to get a seriously low angle showing up towards him in this glorious morning sunshine. And I've actually just seen one other lioness making her way towards us. So a lot going on here, and we're lucky to have these lions active at the moment. Let's see. Just, oh, this is going to be good here. Look at that. What a great view. Wonderful. Now, there's so much action here. What I'm going to actually do is just reverse again and get into another spot to try and make the most of all the ongoings here. Because there's another lioness that's just come to drink and all of the other lion have turned around. So take a look here. This is going to be great. I'm going to try and get my camera out quickly. Try to fire off a few pictures. Look at this. Lucky timing. When lion have been feeding on a buffalo for some time, we can often find them fast asleep, not doing anything at all. But that's not the case now. We have got lucky and they are up and about performing for us. Oh, that young male's got a bit of a wound on his back, and that'll be signs of the turmoil that's going on at the moment with the Birmingham coalition coming through the area. There we go. And that's one of the main places that lions will focus on when attacking and fighting with other lions, because they'll try and paralyze their opponents by severing the spinal cord, and it's often right at the end of the spine, at the base of their tail, that they will attack and bite onto. But tough, resilient animals, all the wild animals out here, lions included, and even though it does appear like it's a bit of a nasty gash, I don't think it's going to be anything for this lion to be concerned about. It seems to be quite healthy. The other young male who was up on the bank behind us has started making his way down, and he's going to probably join up with them a little bit later. This lioness, you'll notice, doesn't have a tail, and quite interesting, because the first time I saw the Salala Pride was when I was working in the southern portions of the Sabi Sands, south of the Sand River. And even then there was a lioness without a tail. This is a different one, who was probably a youngster when I was viewing them 3 or 4, or probably 4 or 5 years ago now, back then. But they appear to have had a run of bad luck with lioness losing their tails. Well, I'm so happy that this is the first time I'm seeing these animals, or at least that I can remember, and it looks like we are just missing one lioness, so she may be somewhere close to the carcass, which I'm guessing is just up, further up in the riverbed above us. Look at how muddy her chin is from this muddy water. Oh, here's the other young male that was up on the bank. It looks like he's going to join her. Beautiful. It's incredible how close the bonds are between these animals, and as ferocious as they can be at certain times, they can be incredibly loving and tender at others, and this is a good example of that. Now, interestingly, I think I can see a little bit of a ruffle of fur on the spine of this young male. I'm just going to take a closer look through my binoculars. Yep, it's also got a wound on its spine. There's the female who's got that bizarre look without her tail. And Matwix Just like earlier we said, we don't censor anything on safari, so don't be surprised to see her going to the toilet there. It's all part of the show. Well, I'm guessing that this female could be dominant within this pride. I'm not sure who's who yet and how old any of them are, but when she returned to the water, all the other lions turned around and followed her. So that's an indicator to me that she could be maybe the oldest or most dominant lioness, because they all seem to be kind of following her moves. Look at that stare coming back towards us. And in this windy weather, even the lions will be cautious of any potential threats, because in the windy weather they can't be sure what noises they are hearing, and the rustling of leaves may be a potential threat, it may be potential prey. But for these lions who have been running from their home territory and certainly under assault from the various coalitions of males that are wreaking havoc here, they'll be cautious at the moment. So don't be surprised to see them pricking up their heads from time to time, staring off to make sure they aren't in any danger. Just going to reposition the vehicle slightly. The other vehicle in the sighting with us is kind of jammed due to our position, so I just want to move a bit, and that way they can also move into a better spot for their guests. So like I said, the male has come down from his little perch up on the left there, and he was the one that came and joined the lioness and drank head to head with her. We should be getting some more great views again from a low angle, which for me is something that we don't often have the privilege of getting. And feel it gives you a much better indication of the animal's size once you do get on a lower angle. When you're shooting down on them, it can be a little bit deceiving as to how big they are. Jeez, they really don't look in the best condition, all these lions. They're all a little bit moth-eaten. I guess that's a sign of the times. It's tough times for the prides of lion, especially young lions like these young males. But they are certainly not in terrible condition. That don't read into it wrong, that I don't think that they're in any danger. They're just not looking as good as they could be. Happy to hear Ginny's just joined onto the safari, but she didn't manage to hear which lion these were. And Ginny, they are the Salala Pride, or a portion thereof. There have been various portions of the Salala Pride that have split up into different groups. This portion contains 6 members, 3 lioness and 3 young males. And these young males, I'm guessing, are probably approaching 2 years of age, but I could be wrong. And Sharon in New Jersey was interested to know the age of these young males. So Sharon, like I say, probably around 1.5 to 2 years of age would be my guess. But if anybody does know the exact age of them, please let us know. Oh, this is a great angle now. This lioness with her head up. She also looks fairly young to me, so she could be a sister of these young males. I think that's a high likelihood, whereas the other lioness without a tail looks a little bit older, possibly even a mother of some of these youngsters. And I'm looking forward to seeing the other lioness. I'm guessing she's also going to be a little bit older, and possibly the two of them would have given birth to the 3 young males and this 1 young lioness. Now, one of the updates I got last night around the campfire is that there's been a lot of leopard mating activity, and poor old Tingana is apparently absolutely exhausted. He's been doing a lot of mating, especially with Karula. And Country Girl would like to know if the act of mating with lions is quite similar to that of leopards, with a lot of neck biting and aggression. And it most certainly is, Country Girl. No different to leopards, almost exactly the same, exactly the same. And it's a very short copulation involving a lot of growling and neck biting and flaying paws as they dismount. And you're going to have to keep tuned in, Country Girl. I'm sure it won't be very long before we do get to show you lions mating. With all the turmoil that has been going on, a lot of lion cubs have been killed by the upcoming coalition, the Birmingham males. And once they've killed cubs that were not fathered by them, they will then have to mate with the lioness so that they can get their bloodlines into the system. And I'm hoping not only will we get to see some great mating, but also some tiny little cubs in the next few months. I've got a 3-month gestation period if the mating is successful, so thankfully not a long wait. I've been mentioning a lot about lion turmoil that's been going on in the area, and possibly haven't been very accurate into the new viewers as to what exactly is going on. But basically there's a coalition of 5 young males. They're about 4.5, 5 years old now, and they've come into the area and chased away 2 bigger, older dominant males called the Matimba males. And it's not uncommon for young males to come through and stamp their authority and chase off older males. And Renee in San Diego has asked a good question on that topic. She would like to know, how long is the average time that a coalition of males will be dominant in any given area? Is it months or years? And it's usually around 4 to 5 years. That would be the average time that lions would be dominant over a given area. Over that 4 or 5 year period, there may be peaks and troughs in terms of how many lioness their territory will encompass. But from about 5 years to 10 years of age is when male lions will be at their peak. Obviously at 10 years they're beginning to pass their sell-by dates a little bit, and that's when younger coalitions could come through and chase them off. Even then though, once they are chased off, they'll still be dominant, possibly though in a just smaller area with maybe only one pride of lioness, and it sounds like that's what's happened with the Matimba males. They've moved from their initial territory, which is this area, to the southern parts of the Sabi Sands, and they've set up shop there. They don't seem to be getting trouble from any other males, and they've also acquired one pride of lioness. So you'll probably just find that even though they are losing strength and therefore territory, they still are dominant, but just not in a very big area. Well, very happy to hear that Chel, one of our newer viewers, is loving this sighting, and we've got extremely lucky. You can tell now that they're all asleep that our timing was really good earlier, because we got to see them up and about. And Chel mentioned that she was shocked as to what little concern they paid to us in the vehicles. And you're right, Chel, it is quite remarkable. It's as if we're not even here. And isn't it wonderful that we can view these animals without disturbing them? And the reason why it is like that is quite simple. Over many years, probably 40 years now or longer, the Sabi Sands has been a photographic destination, and because we don't harm the animals or interfere in their lives at all, we don't feed them, we don't hurt them, we don't harm them, all we do is look at them. Over the generations, the lion, and especially the leopard, who are usually very shy and secretive, have become relaxed with the vehicles. And you can often drive into a sighting when they're all asleep and they don't even lift their heads to acknowledge you. So we're extremely fortunate. Don't be fooled though, they are still wild animals, and their response to us when we are on foot, when we're trying to track them down on foot, can be very different. Most of the time, animals of all shapes and sizes will run away from us. That includes the lions and the elephants, but occasionally they will feel the need to charge you and assert their dominance, or they may feel threatened and feel like attacking is their best solution. And if we were to get out the vehicle now, you'd see either a charge or the lions running away, neither of which we want. But it's important just to let you know that they are still completely wild, and it's just from a young age, when they were little cubs, they would have been seeing vehicles, hearing vehicles, and that's why they have begun to accept us as kind of, I guess, part of the furniture out here. And another thing Chel was interested to know is, when will young lions' manes start to develop into big and beautiful ones? And anywhere from 4 to 5 years of age, like the Birmingham Coalition of Male Lions that you'll hopefully see in not too long, in the coming few weeks. They should spend some more time on our property. They did skirt straight through Juma last night, it sounds like, according to the tracks. But those 5 young males are really coming into their prime, and just under 5 years of age, they still haven't got to a big mane yet. So it's not quite fully developed, and I guess therefore an age that it would be developing to full size would be around 6 or 7. But just like humans, age and growth and development will vary slightly between individuals. And obviously genetics also plays a big role in that. Some males will have very dark manes, other males will have lighter manes. and some will certainly be more big and impressive than others. So these youngsters here that are probably around 1.5 or 2 years of age have still got a long way to go, lots of growing in both body and in mane size. What I'm thinking of doing is going and taking a closer look at where this buffalo could be. I'm just going to drive up in the general direction of where I can see some vultures, and we'll see if we can work out what is going on there. Tibbs, well done on your first little session behind the camera there. And there's a lot going on when being on camera. I must let all of you guys know there's a million things to think about. And even though Tibbs is an experienced cameraman, most cameramen who arrive here have got not too much experience in exactly what we're doing. It's a very unique operation, this, the fact that we're live. There's no time to rethink shots. You've only got one attempt at it, along with many other variables, makes for a lot going on, and I think he's done a great job starting off. So I can see some vehicle tracks heading up into this riverbed. Let's see how far we can go. I'm not sure where the buffalo is. Signal may be a bit shaky in this riverbed, but just want to see what happens if we poke our nose a little bit further. No, not looking promising here. The vultures sadly flew off. They were just up to our left here. I can smell, it's a lot of lion dung that I can smell, so I don't think I can smell the actual carcass. But the wind is swirling around in all directions. So hard to tell where this dead buffalo could be. Just got a very good question through from Linda, and she would like to know why I call the safari a show. And Linda, your guess is as good as mine. I should just call it a safari, but I've slipped into a bad habit of calling a show. So please feel free to slap my wrists whenever I do that, because it doesn't really make too much sense. But it's something that I've started doing, and something that I'd like to try and stop doing. So thanks for pointing that out, and feel free, like I said, to call me out every time I do call it that going forward. Just want to shoot up into one more area and see if we can't have another view down into the riverbed, or find out where this other lioness is. There's one lioness missing. And while we make our way up there, I can answer a question from Virginia, also on the topic of lioness. And she's interested to know, within a pride, will it just be one of the lioness that are the most dominant? And yes, it is typically one who is the oldest or biggest and strongest and most experienced, and she will be the one to get the rest of the pride on the move. When they wake up, if she starts moving, the rest of the pride will start moving. So it is, yes, certainly one lioness that will usually excuse me, run the show. But like most things in life, there'll always be kind of changes and slight differences between different people or animals. And what you may find is certain prides may have a number of older dominant lioness who collectively make decisions on And it's not always going to be a set, hard and fast rule. Oh, wow. At about 2 o'clock, Tibbs, just to the left of the dead tree. Yeah, just to the left of that dead tree. If you just zoom in. Left of the tree. Keep going. Yeah, there it is. Lower down. There's a black-backed jackal sitting in the bushes there, and this is an animal that we don't get to see very often, and you can see it just at the top of the screen there. Awesome, well done, Tibbs. And it's obviously trying to scavenge some of this buffalo carcass, so maybe the jackal will be able to lead us to the kill. I'm just going to give it a moment or two. They can be quite nervous, and you can't blame it because it knows there's lion around. And again, in this very windy weather, it's not going to be sure whether the rustling it can hear or any lions approaching it. Lions will kill jackal and any other predators that they can get their claws into. And that's just to eliminate competition. They'll usually not feed on predators that they kill, and do it simply to eliminate competition, like I said. And you can tell that it really is very nervous, with its ears pivoting from side to side, just making sure the lion's not creeping up on it. Just saw a little bit of movement in the bush far behind that jackal. I couldn't work out what it was, so I'm just trying to look through my binoculars to see if I can't get another glimpse, possibly another jackal. I don't know. It was just a flash of movements, and I think while I was looking through my binoculars, the jackal's run off. So let's see where it goes. Now, I think it's a black-backed jackal. I must just be careful and make sure that it's not actually a side-striped jackal. I'm just going to try and reposition ever so slightly. Black-backed jackal will not have a white tip on the end of its tail. So that is the key thing to look for, and the easiest thing to look for when trying to distinguish between the black-backed jackal and the side-striped jackal. Oh no, this one's tail looks like there's got no fur on it, so it's going to be a difficult one to use as an indicator, but I think it may actually be a side-striped jackal. The side-striped jackal does also have a kind of stripe along its flank. Let me see what happens here. But this one's tail certainly didn't look as bushy as it should be. Oh, I think we're getting closer to the action. I can just see some vultures on the ground here, and where there's vultures on the ground, here we go. The jackal just ran off, but the vultures are there. There they are, a few big white-backed vultures. They're probably too heavy to fly, filled with buffalo meat, and that's why they're running along the ground. Where is this carcass? Hopefully not too far away. I think I can see a large grey mass ahead of me, which could be the buffalo. No, that's just a fallen down tree. Great! All these carnivores, lions, jackal, vultures, what a morning it's been. A very fortunate start for me getting back in the vehicle after a couple of weeks away. Just gonna creep forward and see what lies up ahead. It'll be wonderful if we get to see some vultures actually feeding on a carcass, something we don't get to see very often. certainly vehicle tracks taking us off-road, continuing in this direction, so I'm guessing the kill could be up ahead. I'm just going to stop here though and try and get you a good view of a vulture just perched itself up in a dead tree. Look at those beautiful clouds in the background, and great scene this is. A vulture in a dead tree. They prefer to land in the dead trees because it's far easier for them to land and take off onto a perch with no obstructions, so they'll, especially in the summer months, avoid the trees with leaves where they can. I'm going to get my binoculars, take a close look onto the chest of this vulture, and you may notice it's got a slight protrusion at the base of the neck. And that very slight bump or protrusion is kind of a pantry called a crop, which it can store up to 1.5 kilograms of extra meat in, on top of what it's already fed on. And because they are opportunistic animals that rely on other predators to kill their prey, they cannot hunt for themselves. They need to be able to cash in when the going's good. And now you can see when it's moving about that little kind of bulge from below the neck. Oh. And it's probably got a lot more cleaning that it needs to do after rummaging around through a buffalo carcass. I hope we get to find out where exactly it is. I'm guessing it could be down in this riverbed somewhere close to us here. Well, Carol, thanks for your comment and observation. She thought she saw a buffalo somewhere close to where that jackal was sitting. I'm not sure where the jackal's gone, but I'm fairly certain we didn't drive past it, Carol, so you could have just been imagining things. Don't worry though, it's a good sign of positive thinking, and it happens to me quite often. When you are hoping to see something, your brain can twist and contort random inanimate objects into whatever you want it to be, and I'm guessing that's what happened to you over there. Okay, well, good view of that vulture, but I do want to continue snooping around to see if we can find out where this carcass is. Who knows what will be happening at the carcass itself. Big thanks to Angie, who's just sent through a message saying that the buffalo was deep into the riverbed, so I don't think it's going to be possible for us to view. Oh, don't go. Well done though, Tebs, at least he got the vulture flying off. We were so close to it. And I think we may get lucky though, because I can see a lot more birds of prey up ahead, a few hooded vultures, white-backed vultures, and I think this buffalo must be just down in the riverbed ahead of us here. So we may be able to squeeze in between these tambuti trees. The vultures all flew off, but I can just see a few bones here. Let me see if I can creep forward a bit. Oh, there we go. We've got a great view of a vulture there again. Well done, Tebs. I'm trying to... Ooh, and now I can also smell the buffalo. The buffalo's just down in the riverbed to our left, but let's enjoy the views of this vulture before we try and get you a view of whatever is remaining down there. It looks like just skin and bones, the brief glimpse that I've had. You don't get to see vultures as often as I would like to, so I just want to take this opportunity to really enjoy having a closer look at them. Perfectly designed for their lifestyle. They've got that very long neck with hardly any feathers on it, and that's critical because they're doing so much feeding in quite bloody, messy carcasses, often squabbling with other vultures. That neck, if it was feathered and difficult to maintain, would be not the wisest option for the vulture, so it's very easy to keep clean. And what you may notice as it swivels its neck around is that it's almost got a scarf, there we go, of long feathers, and when it's flying up at high altitudes where it can be cold, it'll have that long neck tucked in with a little scarf keeping it warm. Now this vulture is the white-backed vulture. It's kind of the middleweight category of the vultures we get out here. It's the most common. And other vultures, the hooded vultures, are a lot smaller, both in body size and in beak size. And then we also get some that are slightly bigger. So they all occupy slightly different niches. Some will be like the hooded vulture, designed for feeding on all the leftovers once the other bigger vultures have consumed the easier to get chunks of meat. And then the hooded vulture can come in with its very small, thin beak to make sure that nothing goes to waste. And I'm hoping it won't be long before a hooded vulture pops into a spot where we can show it to you, but for now I can't see any near us. What I am going to do is I'm just going to try and creep forward a little bit. I really do want to show you the remains of this buffalo carcass, and I think we may just be able to sneak in a view. Hold on though, because it's quite a steep bank here and we don't want to crash down it, not on Tebs' first morning. I think we'll be okay. Okay, that should do for now. And if we just look down to our left here, Tebs, there we can see a bit of the carcass. That's a bit of the rib cage you can see, and the spine. There's still a little bit of meat for the vultures to feed on, especially between all those ribs. Doesn't smell very pleasant, that I can assure you. And who knows how this buffalo came unstuck. I'm guessing it died of natural causes here. It maybe fell down and hurt itself down this very steep ravine that we parked on the edge of. And it looks like it's been here for quite some time. So glad that we got you a brief glimpse of the carcass, but what I'm probably going to do is move away from it, because by us being here it's going to prevent the vultures doing what they want to do, and that way we'll also get into a more comfortable position. Tebs and Jandre are hanging on like mountain climbers onto the back of the vehicle. They're not as fortunate as me. I'm in a comfortable seat here. They don't have the same privilege as me. Thanks guys. Okay, well, it's going to take us a couple of minutes to get back to the lions, and while we are wiggling our way through the bush, we will send you back to James for a quick update on what he's up to. See you later.
Well, I bring you the news, everyone, that unfortunately the Birmingham boys have crossed into Torchwood, which is to the east of us, and I've just had word now from Ephraim, who works at Cheetah Plains, that they turned due south and headed into Mala Mala. Now, I think that's quite an interesting situation. This has been a male lion vacuum until last night. It's the first time the Birminghams have come through here in quite a while. They haven't spent any time on Djuma at all. They've spent very little time on Buffelshoek, which is also their kind of domain. Well, it was originally their domain. And I think that this place here, Djuma, is setting itself up for perhaps another influx of lions from the north, maybe the Salatis. And I also think it's fascinating that the lions you're watching with Scott, the Salala Pride, are as far out of their natal territory as they normally are. And that, we think, is a result of the fact that our old boys, the Matimbas, Hairy Belly and Ginger, have headed down towards Londolozi and seem to have